Hello, and welcome to Graphic Policy Radio, the comics podcast for people who know that if there is a flower zombie apocalypse, it will probably be Monsanto's fault, and we should get our petitions ready right about now. Joining me on the show today, in fact, to talk about the future flower apocalypse in the form of a comic book, are the creative team behind the new Black Mask comics series called The Wilds. That means we're being joined by Vita Ayala and Emily Pearson. What is The Wilds? Hey. Okay.
How's it going?
Good. I'm going to give them the promo text, and then we'll get you guys talking about it. After a cataclysmic plague sweeps across America, survivors come together to form these city-state-like communities for safety. Out beyond the settlement walls are innumerable dangers, feral animals, crumbling structures, and abominations. Those that were touched by the plague and become something other, something as beautiful as it is deadly. Welcome to The Wilds, a brand new comic series. We are joined by the writer and penciler of this hot series from Black Mask Studios. Vita Ayala spent years in comics and book retail and night security at one of the oldest museums in New York City before taking the plunge and entering the Thunderdome lifestyle that is pursuing a career in the arts. They have since written for DC Comics, including the Rebirth Wonder Woman Annual, Rebirth Supergirl 19, which folks really need to pick up. It's a super important comic. We may mention this in a few moments. Dark Horse Comics' Secret Love of Geeks, and Image Comics' Bitch Planet Triple Feature number 4, as well as having a creator-owned book, The Wilds, which is what we're talking about today. And Vita also wrote a two-off comic about my favorite anti-hero, Amanda Waller, the Wall herself, over for DC Comics. And also joining us is Emily Pearson, who is the penciler on the series. Before coming to Black Mask, Emily attempted to study art at her local junior college after deciding to drop out, which was a good decision. She took on commissions and learned how to draw comics. Since then, she has illustrated Vault Comics' cult classic, Zero Short, written by Elliot Rahal. Ooh, I've heard of his stuff, and I've heard it's very good. And All Roads to Jacob, written by Jed McPherson. So welcome to the show, both of you.
Hey. Thanks for having us. Thanks for having us, yeah.
I've known Vita through Vita's sibling, Danny, who is my official comics store sales
dealer. They're your dealer, right?
Yeah, basically my dealer. Basically, Danny is the person who sells me the goods when I need them and brings me the comics drugs that I need on a regular basis. And was also actually my husband's Magic the Gathering game store dealer as well. So I feel like I'm sort of close to your family anyway, even though I think you and I have only met a handful of times. But it's great to have you back on the show again.
It's great to be back. You are like the ultimate hype person. It's great. I feel like I should just use that soundbite whenever I have to do an introduction for myself.
Oh, yeah, totally. Happy to be there for that sort of need. You know, I think one of the important things about having a comics podcast is really helping people find comics that I think that they'll like, and this, you know, is right up in there. You know, we're always looking for comics that we think that folks who maybe aren't super engaged in reading stuff right now might be into, and what you guys have here is a series that has some really interesting, unique protagonists, including a lead who is a queer woman of color. You have really lovely, lush-looking art that's really unique in its style, but also really decipherable, and just these super haunting images that I haven't really seen show up anywhere else. And, you know, zombies are a big thing right now, but I've never seen zombies like this. So do you guys want to tell me a little bit about how you guys came up with the idea for The Wilds?
Emily, you take this one. I feel like I always give the pitch.
Yeah, so coming up with the idea, we kind of just Vita and I wanted to work with each other, and Vita talked to me about all these different stories they had and different story ideas, and I think it was way different back then. You know, it didn't have any flower zombies, and the world wasn't kind of, it was different from what it ended up being, but I feel like that general story the best. So we started going with that, and then Vita asked me what I like to draw, and I'm really into nature, and I said I also was interested in maybe drawing mutations or something like that. So Vita completely rewrote just a lot of the story to accommodate that. And, a lot of elements came together and we started talking about different stuff. I don't know how we came across the idea of the Abominations, the flower zombies, but it just kind of happened.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that because we get asked that particular question about the zombies a lot, and I'm always like, God, I can't remember who did it. And I think I was panicking because I had to figure out how to put mutation into this in a visual way that wasn't completely grotesque. I think the gross stuff is cool, but I think it's been done. And then I think Emily and I were talking about playing video games and just the video games we like to play. And I think we were talking about really pretty stuff in video games. And out of that, we both were we really like to play Last of Us and all this. Oh, that is really cool. And then that chemical reaction of the two of us just talking about something completely different kind of helped that, I think. That's the closest I can nail it down, though.
I feel I have I've been a zombie. I've been a 1950s nuclear family zombie for Halloween. I've done costumes and makeup for a really hilarious short zombie movie back it must have been 12 years ago or more now. And I'm so bored of zombies, but you guys have introduced this really interesting world, that I think the environment that you're writing with these characters in, I kind of associate a little bit with some of the Roger Corman stuff, but the aesthetics are completely different. You guys are really connecting, for folks who haven't seen the comic, go do a little Google image search, look at this profile we did for the show. These disturbing, uncanny images of these sort of serene, almost looking human faces with plants and flowers growing out of their bodies the way, mutations like growths. And it's completely a new take on it. I think it sort of has a nature gone wild, sort of an uncanny nature gone wild feeling going on that I haven't gotten from anything I've seen for a long time.
I think for me, one of the things that really freaks me out about zombies, kind of on a thematic level, and always has, is the consumption, right? So they're consuming not just people, but they're just ravaging whatever they come into contact with. And then I made that connection with nature somehow, and it was through some conversation I was having with Emily. But the idea that nature does not care about humanity. Given the chance, nature will just take everything back over again, and we will never see the ruins of whatever was there before. Very quickly, nature will consume. And I wanted, for me, when Emily was sending me the concept stuff for the Abominations, I was like, oh, this is exactly reflecting what I had in mind with using nature in that way. So it was cool.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Vita and I kind of just we went over different ways to portray it, but I think we just kind of had the same idea in our heads without really talking about it. It was kind of clear that the Abominations kind of being a part of nature, taking back the world, really became clear with that.
And we lucked out, too, because Emily's mom is a horticulturalist, apparently, which is pretty awesome. So Emily has all this experience with plants.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my gosh.
That is so fortuitous. That's fortuitous.
I never run out of, plants to draw now because I just screw up knowing every single thing. So it's I mean, my mom's pretty happy about it. So.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I'm curious. Yeah, what do people who work with plants think about the plant apocalypse?
I think she's not too into the gore part of it, but the flower zombies is pretty nice.
I started getting tagged in a bunch of Annihilation stuff, which is maybe the coolest thing.
What is Annihilation? Excuse my video gaming ignorance here.
So Annihilation is actually a movie based off of a book by the same name, and I don't want to spoil any of the stuff for people who haven't read it or seen it because it's come out. The movie came out very, very recently, but it's starring Tessa Thompson and Natalie Portman and Gina Rodriguez. But there's some real aggressive nature reclaiming things in the movie. And I sat down in the theater and I saw it, and I was like, I bet as soon as I leave this theater, I'm going to have Twitter notifications. And I was not wrong.
I can think of something in the water.
Seen it yet.
You know, like the fact that you're thinking about this now and the movie coming out now, and there's something that's making this feel really topical at the moment, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if it's just because, you know, the wild is always on my mind, but like I feel like I'm seeing a lot of floral horror recently, just with the wild, and I think there's a couple comic books I read recently that have like body horror with plants and stuff like that. So it's really cool to see because it's a concept I really like. But yeah, I'm not sure if it's just me having like the wild tunnel vision, or if it's just actually been a more prominent thing lately.
What do you guys seen much with that fungus that infects insects and takes over their brains and makes their bodies grow mushrooms out of them? And
that was a huge inspiration for me when thinking about this, for sure. When I was thinking about the virus, and Emily and I went back and forth a little bit about this, but I was trying to think of a way to make it make sense, even though it's a thing that is clearly fictional, and I kind of fell on that. And there are a couple of other bacteria and viruses that kind of make you act in very specific and peculiar ways. But the image of like the ants with like the mushrooms erupting from their skull is definitely forefront.
In line with this. What's so compelling about zombie stories in general for us, do you think?
This is I think we get asked this a lot, and I have a couple of answers, but I'm really interested to hear what Emily has to say about this, for sure.
That's a hard question because it's like there's so many like zombie stories, and there's so many ways it can be overdone, but it's just I feel like people really like the apocalypse setting, and I feel like having something like zombies or just like some sort of threat level like that's constantly around the world is really interesting for characters to deal with, because it makes it so like there's a situation where the characters are never safe, and I don't know, yeah. So it's I think people really like seeing stories that, you know, are zombies, have zombies in them or something like that, because it can bring out these really interesting character-driven moments, and I don't know, it's really interesting. It's a lot of what happens in the wilds too. Is this story is very heavily character-driven, and I love that. So it's really nice to work on that.
So yeah, I guess, you know, when you're inventing a comic whole cloth, and you're not doing something for the big two, you're in a thing where you're not looking for DC or Marvel for this. This is your own invention. You can have anyone in the world be in it. How do you guys develop the cast of characters that you highlight?
So when I think about things like this, I think about like a D&D party and kind of what you would need to kind of function. And I kind of move on from there. Clearly, there's no magic or anything like that in the wilds, but I think, all right, well, you're going to need someone that kind of tells the jokes and inspires people, kind of like the bard, and you're going to need someone that support, you know, like the whomever, like the the mage or whatever, and you're going to need someone that is at the forefront in there, like the ranger or whatever. I always think about that, but more in terms of personalities. What dynamic, group dynamic is going to be the most interesting and will cause the most trouble in any particular situation.
I like it.
I'm never going to be able to look at the runners the same way.
I was going to say the runners
try and figure out who's
rangers, right? I mean, with that, the runners being like, the main character class, as it were, that we're introduced to in the first issue. The main character, Daisy, she's a runner. I mean, she seems like she's a ranger if you're going to get D&D character class on us. Does that sound about right?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, Daisy's my ranger. It's a little bit serious, but only because it helps her survive, but there's a real, squishy core in there. She knows her way around outside, and she's actually much more comfortable out there doing what she does than she is amongst, the people of the compound. Not amongst runners. She's comfortable around the other runners, but she feels much more like herself when she is out in the wild, I think. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. And then her love interest. Tell me a little bit more
Heather.
about her. Heather, yeah.
She's my favorite character. She's real wily. She definitely is the kind of person that will just tell you what she's thinking. It's not that she can't be quiet. It's just that she has no reason to. She can back up whatever she says with her actions. So she's really not concerned about anything in particular happening to herself. She's an incredibly competent runner. She's probably the actual best that they have. But at this point, she's only sticking around because Daisy is staying. She wants to move on, but she won't leave Daisy behind. They don't say the L word at all. Probably not till later in the series. But they definitely love each other. Yeah, it's hard. It's a hard thing to say when you could die at any second. So, but there's definitely a lot of love. Yeah, Heather's just cool.
Heather's like the hot girl in class, and you just want to talk to her, but she's so intimidating, and it's like
yeah. Oh, that's 100% it. I've projected years of that feeling into this one character.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, I definitely think that there's a lot of dynamics in the comics where you sort of have the protagonist, but everybody but their partner is the one that you're But Daisy makes quite a big appearance as a complete badass, well established in the first scene of the comic, really.
I usually don't like protagonists because I feel like that they, in any particular thing, are mostly a plot device to get us through, or a perspective to get us through. But I actually really like Daisy, especially seeing Emily and Marissa really bring her to life. When I'm writing, to me, it seems a little flat, and then I see what my partners do, and I'm like, oh, this is a fully rounded person. The amount of acting that Emily is able to kind of really portray on the page is really something special, very nuanced. And then Marissa is an actual wizard with colors. So.
Oh my god!
Absolutely. The colors on this are just really beautiful, just straight up.
Yeah, it's breathtaking. Emily, like she said, is very interested in nature, and Marissa, I would, just from looking at the work that she does on this, I would assume that she also is very into nature, because the amount of care that she puts into all of the colors is really something special.
Yeah, Marissa knows how to just light up a forest or just any scene really well and set the mood to the scene of the what's going on in the comics, and it really makes a huge difference. Like, you don't think about color that much, but it makes, you know, the book what it is.
Yeah, I think something like this, especially, like, you can really see how much space there is for that. And the art, you have some striking reds coming out of people's faces that are not the same reds that we usually see exploding out of people's faces. And much, much more. I mean, you have like a million different greens in here. But, yeah, she's definitely one of those colorists that I think people really stand up and take notice. Her work on the books and stuff like that. Yeah. How did you guys? So how did she really is? So I mean, so how did you guys first connect? Actually,
Twitter.
Excellent.
True millennials.
Yeah, we were just following each other on Twitter, and we started talking. We talked about doing a story together, comic. So, yeah, it just it happened very, very slowly, and then like all at once. So it was pretty nice.
Yeah, comics is hurry up and wait. But this was the opposite. It was like maybe, oh my God, go. Yeah, Emily does. I think you just opened a store, right? She does these amazing Overwatch like prints, and I am a huge fan of Overwatch, just as a franchise, but also Emily's take on like Tracer and Pharah are fucking amazing. Oops, excuse my language. Freaking amazing.
Oh, it's totally fine. It's totally fine.
Okay, cool.
Curse away.
Okay, excellent. It is. I'm sweating trying to hold back the curses, so that's good. Yeah. Emily posted a bunch of like really cool fan art, and I was like, oh shit, I gotta just tell this person that they're great, and then it just spun off from there.
Oh wow! And how did you guys approach Black Mask Studios? I know Vita has some other work from them coming out as well, but I'm sure folks would be interested in hearing more about how that went down.
It was actually just through that. The other project that I'm working on is going to need a little more time to kind of bake. And I was like, hey, I have these, this other thing, and here's who's, I want to attach to it. And, they were very, very, very supportive. So cool.
Awesome. And then, I guess Vita was on the show earlier. We had an amazing conversation around the Amanda Waller Suicide Squad mini back then. And I encourage folks to check out that episode as well. I'd love to hear from you, Emily, about your origin in comics, your superhero origin backstory of learning how to make comic art, and how did you first get into comics in the first place as an interest?
I don't remember how I picked up comics. I used to read a lot of books, just a lot of paperbacks, and I think I was in Barnes & Noble or something like that, and I was watching a lot of Batman movies at the time, so I picked up some Batman comics or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, wow, this is so cool. I love this. And so, because the format of just reading a comic, I could just read the worst comic in the world, and I would still love it because it's just so much fun to read. And so just I was really into art, and so I read a lot of DC Batman stuff at the beginning and just kind of got interested in doing comic book art. And then I started probably learning how to draw comics about 3 years ago or so, and this is my first published book, which is pretty cool.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, how did you learn how to, you see so much amazing fan art and beautiful pinups, and I think really turning those into being able to do sequentials, which is something that you do an amazing job of in this. There's a flashback scene in this issue that really builds some tension and humor in it, and the staging of where we first see Daisy in action. You're definitely someone who knows how to do sequential art. How did you learn how to do that kind of thing in your own work?
Oh, man. I did commissions for about a year or two before I did the Wilds, and it's just like the commissions were like very, very terrible for a while before like I realized like how to draw sequentials, and it's just like a matter of like practicing drawing everything. I think figures is probably the most important, and that's what I spent the most time on. But besides just figures, like faces and like backgrounds and stuff like that. So it's just, I don't know, if you spend enough time learning how to draw everything, eventually when you have a reference, you'll be able to draw it a little bit easier. It's not like I'm not sure how to put it right. If you just draw everything long enough, drawing something new for the first time isn't so hard anymore. So you eventually get used to all the things you need to learn for comics.
And you definitely are working digitally.
Oh, sorry about that. I was going to say, Emily, you definitely do really interesting layouts for panels and stuff. So one of the things that I really liked before we started working together was your kind of layout work. Is that something that you like? You just saw a bunch of stuff that you liked and you kind of like went from there, or is that intuitive to you?
No, I read a lot of comic books. I just kind of I don't know. I'm really interested in different layouts. Like, I think it's really fun to try to, especially like overlapping layouts, which I know would make any colorist hate me, but it's just really fun to like try and figure out like the way different artists will tell a page or something like that, and kind of because I think one of the hardest things to learn when you're drawing the comic is how to fill the space for the panel. And so if you have like a page that's like has like 3 or 4 establishing shots in it or something like that, that could be really difficult to do. So if you have a good page layout and you have just enough space for what's going on in each panel, it kind of does its own job. But yeah, the layouts was just looking at other artists that I really liked and seeing like, okay, well, they kind of like put like long panels, like 2 long panels next to each other or something like that. So I'm going to try something like that. So yeah, it's just kind of like seeing what other people do that I like, so I try to pretend that I'm them.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, who are your big art influences?
Oh my God. I like Sean Murphy a lot and Fiona Staples. Craig Piccini is really good. I have a lot. I could go on forever, but I like stuff that's like, I like everything, but I like stuff a lot that's like semi-realistic and has really interesting line weight to it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
I feel like, looking at your style, I sort of think about U.S. comics, like there's sort of 3 big changes that have happened in my lifetime as a reader. Like there's what happened when really you first see the influence of anime and manga in art, and then there's the switch to really like having the digital process be at the center, of drawing. And I think like early digital art looks like shit, and I'm so glad that we're beyond that now. But there's still a lot of, on balance, I'm generally prefer a lot of things that are hand drawn because I'm old school and my taste got set in stone when I was younger. But I think like there's just something really elegant and painterly about your work here, and I think it might be the line weights. I hadn't even thought about that as being the reason I might be particularly liking it. But you also have a certain amount of detail, that I know a lot of artists don't have time to put in, and then I don't like art when it doesn't have those things. So that's definitely something that works for me here in your work as well.
Sorry, I didn't get that last part. What did you say?
Oh, so that's definitely stuff that I'm attracted to in your work as well. Like I think that you have a detailed, not cartoony, I mean, you're not doing hyper realist stuff either, which I'm actually not crazy about it either. But it's not cartoony. It's not shorthand. It's illustratorly, to coin a phrase.
Yeah. That's, I don't know. It's just like if you just talk to any artist and you ask them like, who are your favorite artists or what are your favorite comic books, it's just their style will be like a mash of everything they like. And so, like I just like a lot of stuff that's like, that's kind of illustratory and that's not like super realistic but not super cartoony either. I like to do cartoony stuff every now and then, but for a book like The Wilds, I'm not sure if that would work too well.
No.
We could do a dream sequence and it's super cartoony.
Yeah, actually, that's true. The Plants vs. Zombies already exists, so we have a cartoony version of that has been covered already. And then you guys did.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I had a couple different. When Vita and I started working on the comic together, I had a couple different pages on my website that were like some cartoony like sequentials, and then Vita's just like, hey, can we do like the semi-realistic stuff for the Wilds? It's like, I think that would fit the story better. I'm like, yeah, don't worry about it. Like, totally. I
mean, it takes like a lot more time, right, to when you're moving farther away from a cartoony style, yeah? Like, how much more time does it do to make a page when you're doing this level of detail?
Oh, man. I want to say like twice as long, because it's like cartoony stuff. It's like you can kind of, like, if you have a problem with the anatomy on a figure, you don't have to get it correct. You can just kind of like, you can just kind of mess around with it, and it will still look fine because it's a cartoon, and you don't have to, because it's like, if something's slightly off, it's not noticeable because it's simplified. But with a style that's like slightly more realistic, like the more realistic it gets, like the more accurate it has to be. So it just takes more time. But yeah, I don't know. It's different for everyone, I think. I think some people are faster with cartoons, and then some people kind of find it hard to stylize different like scenes that you would see realistically, like anatomy or backgrounds or whatever it is.
I guess I just sort of look at a lot of the really cartoony stuff sometimes, and I look at it, and it's hard for me to not sort of have this, I've been a union organizer, like labor analysis, and be like, yes, well, the artist producing this work doesn't have time to do greater detail, and thus I am denied the ability to look at a character that has the level of detail that I so desire in my art, and therefore, like bring it back to like a critique of capitalism and how workers should get paid more money. Like, that's just stuff that all kind of comes together for me. But yeah, I definitely something like, I just love the way the flowers and plants erupt out of people's faces in this like really boundary breaking kind of way. Like you can't really quite see where they're coming from in terms of like where does the skin end and the flower begin, and that's like way more uncanny and disturbing in my opinion.
Yeah, Emily 100% hit that. Like, I hadn't put that in the script, right? But the idea, part of the idea was that literally these people, like, there are plants growing out of them, but they're kind of almost becoming the plant. So that's part of the mutation. And I was like, I don't know how to convey that, so I'm just going to nod, and whatever she draws is just going to be fine. And then she, like, just did it. I was like, all right, apparently I'm psychically connected to this person, so that's cool. There's a scene in the preview pages from the first issue where one of the Abominations takes another one that has been killed and puts it against the tree, and then the plant starts to spread up the tree, and like that was perfect. Like, that is exactly the kind of eerie ass feel that you need to have, where it's like even the very ground and trees cannot be trusted.
A friend of mine who is a comics writer, artist himself, Ethan, did a talk back when the Morbid Anatomy was its own like museum of gothic horror in New York City about zombies. And I think one of the things he said was that like our fear of zombies has to do in some ways with the fears of our body's boundaries breaking down and what's inside being outside. And I really
definitely.
saw that. And the disordered body and
yeah, that physical revulsion is not just like it's a corpse. That's part of it, but yeah, definitely just like the image of your own self as you are trapped within it becoming that thing is truly like horrific.
Yeah, it's scary. I think. Sorry, I keep interrupting you.
No, please. I'm here to hear you talk.
One of the scary things that I thought reading the Wilds was just like you can't really stop it. Like, if nature just wants to like make everyone into these terrible plant like human things, like you can't really do anything about it. So it's just, that's the scariest part of it is like the Abominations themselves are, you know, they're creepy, but like just seeing that they're gonna like, you know, use each other to make the world like take itself back again. It's just like there's nothing you can do about that. So.
So what are each of you guys' sort of favorite zombie works of fiction or comics or video games or, you know, zombie media?
I'm a huge fan of the genre, mostly because it scares the crap out of me and I like to know my enemy. So I'm a huge fan of like the Resident Evil franchise, just, you know, the games and the movies, mostly the first couple of movies. But yeah, those first couple of movies, first couple of games. I remember watching the first movie in theaters, and first of all, I forgot it was a zombie movie halfway through, right? So that we're following these characters, and we get so involved in kind of their drama and the tension of just what they're doing that you forget, oh yeah, there's going to be corpses that come alive and try to eat them later. But I really love, and this is something that isn't as possible in the wild, but I do have an eye towards, where in the first Resident Evil movie, just like in the games, you're stuck in the perspective of these characters. You can't leave. So every time they cut a scene, it just circles around and whoop, we're right back with them, and there's nowhere to go. So that is one of my favorite things, because a lot of zombie stuff kind of, it's like, and it's everywhere in the world, and it's like, all right, like, that's a lot for me to conceptualize, but just this kind of pocket of, you know, the drama unfolding is one of my favorite things. And then there's this game called Last Night on Earth, which is incredible. And it's an asymmetrical competitive board game where like one player will be zombies and the other players will be like the heroes. And each side has different goals and different cards that they use to like fight each other and stuff. And it comes with like a soundtrack and all this really cool stuff. And it's just really ridiculous, immersive, like board game where you literally have little pieces you move around, and you can make up half of the like objectives and stuff. And that was always really fun for me.
Cool. What about you?
I play a lot of video games. For me, I'm not sure if this really counts as zombies. They're kind of zombies. It's a game called Dead Space.
Totally. Holy Jesus.
Yeah. It's a science fiction game that has like alien zombie themes in it, and it's terrifying. Like if you like body horror, that game is just.
I have never played a game before where I literally just deleted it. I was like, no, this is too much. That game.
Wow.
I watched a playthrough at some point, but like I got it like, and I entered that room with the babies, and then like there was just some broken like tanks, and I was like, no, we're done here. This is too much. Like,
oh my God. You know, I don't want to spoil it, but there's the part with the eyes.
that
that's
sounds disturbing as hell.
It's a mix of like Lovecraft and zombies. Like,
yeah, it's so good.
Whew.
Do you feel like there's something particularly politically important in covering this material right now?
I think that stories like this, and I think I've said this before, so bear with me, or rather don't bear with me, tell me to just shut up if I have, but monsters different monsters tend to, not always, but tend to represent kind of different fears and issues that we have societally. And I think that right now, and it's cyclical, right? So like we hit like some sort of industrial boom or some sort of like a tech boom or like something where we have a lot of advancement really quickly and we're kind of figuring out how to catch up as people. And we find that we have stories like zombie stories that kind of crop up. And traditionally it's not always like zombies the way that we think of them now, because that was an invention of a few key people in film, but there are similar stories, right? And so we are at a point now where we kind of feel really out of control and kind of like we're zooming too fast and we're kind of consuming our own tales. And I think that that's certainly politically in this country and in probably England as well. But I think that makes zombie things really appealing because zombie stories are usually from the perspective of a survivor, right? So you want to align yourself with the person that will make it through this horrible insanity, topsy-turvy, everything going bananas. You know, maybe not everyone will make it, and a lot of people will just be caught up in this wave, but, you know, you'll make it. And I think that's part of what makes zombies appealing in general, but certainly right now where everything is just, you know, up in the air.
Well, one of the things that you said when you were guesting on the Sci-Fi Who Won the Week podcast a while back with Danny Ross, not Danny, your sibling, but a completely different Danny,
who was also on there,
former coworker. Yes, us New York folks, we're all sort of secretly connected. So what you were saying that you know, your comic, and I really, having read the comic now, I really see it, also looks at the way the burdens of keeping up with the dangers of society and the world are, you know, consistently fall to be the responsibility of people of color. Like it's that they're the ones who are burdened with having to do so much of the hard work of survival on behalf of everyone else.
And I think that's, I don't know if that's uniquely American in terms of being a perspective, right? But like, I think that's pretty clear in the world, especially in the way that we treat women of color in our society. Oh, thank you so much, Black women, for coming and voting in Alabama and making sure that like that went well. And it's like, yeah, we're like, it shouldn't just be that, and that's not fair. And then whenever anything goes wrong, the first thing you hear is, well, where were Black people? Where were this? Well, where was that? Where were the women? And it's like, doing our best. Like, and it, you know, you get the like, thank you, but in reality, you don't actually get any of the rewards, right? So we expect women of color, especially people of color, but women of color especially, to do all of this emotional and physical labor, and we'll give them like a pat on the head and be like, all right, but like we'll continue to act in a way that is detrimental to you. And so I get really angry about that. But, you know, I'm not a politician. I can only vote, but I can also write about my anger and kind of write about what it's like to make a movement from really buying into this idea, because, I mean, it's not that it's an attractive idea, it's just that it's a persistent idea. So sometimes you buy into it. And, you know, writing a story about moving away from that idea and moving towards an idea of we all have to be in this together, and it's not, I won't stand for being the person that gets used to death. And there will be some people that die during the book. I'm sorry, Emily.
We've had many conversations about this.
It's in a zombie genre. That's going to happen. Like, I can't imagine that wouldn't be the case.
That's also why the cast of characters is so big.
So we don't necessarily know. So I guess it's like we have the law of conservation of characters, as Robert Ebert explains it. If there's a character who you don't really know what they're there for, then they probably are the killer because that's
you're from them, yeah.
Yeah.
One of the smartest things I ever heard about developing a character and stuff was I think Alan Tudyk, so he was Wash on Firefly, right? And apparently there was some sort of conversation where they were like, he and Whedon were like, let's make people really love this guy and then fucking kill him. And I was like, yeah, you always expect the killer or the victim to be the person that you're least invested in. But I think that is cheating if you do it too often. So I can't guarantee that you won't love the person that died. I don't think I'm going to, Game of Thrones it out. That's too much for me. That's a lot. But I Emily and I have talked about this, right? And Emily has come to love a lot of the characters. And that's what I want. I want everyone to kind of get a sense of who everyone is, because also what's important, right, is these characters, these runners, are all whole-ass people. And one of the things that I think our society really suffers from is a lack of empathy and understanding, and it's really easy to just kind of write off someone's death or suffering if you don't know anything about them. But there are all kinds of people, especially brown people and queer people, who suffer all of the time, and I want to put a face to that. I don't want it to be easy. It's kind of too layered. On the one hand, in terms of entertainment, I want that emotional kind of punch, but also I want people to understand that these are people. They represent real people. All people have wants and motivations and are funny, at least to themselves, if not to other people. Like, you know what I mean? No one is the villain of their own story. Everyone is a person, and so if they're going to die, then that should mean something.
I think that's really, really important, and those dynamics are also really clear, even just in the one issue of the Wilds that we have so far.
I really love the second issue, and I hope other people do too.
Yeah, me too.
I am definitely looking forward to it.
We'll get you a copy.
Yay! Now, this book has been selling so much, you guys are going into a second printing. When is that going to be available in the stores?
I think it actually will be at the end of this month. So I think it pushed back the second issue coming out. I'm not 100% positive, but I believe that that's true. And I'll tweet about that when I figure out the specifics. But yeah, it should be at the end of this month / the beginning of next month. And it's beautiful. Ben Temple-Smith's cover for that is gorgeous.
Oh yeah, it's great.
Yeah, we were blessed. Blessed across the board. Natasha Altarisi is doing the main covers, and that was just, each one is more impactful than the last. And Emily did the cover number 1 and maybe on some other covers on the series, which is really awesome, especially for me because I really love, there's a huge difference, like you said before, between sequentials and pinups, and I find covers are a third category. You can be good at sequentials, you can be good at pinups, and not good at covers, but I think Emily is incredible at covers. The cover for number 1 that Emily did is my banner when I go to, like, cons now.
Nice.
Very gorgeous. And then we had, like, a fill-in. Phil Seavey did a cover for number 2, which is super duper duper awesome.
Yeah, I love that one. That's one of my favorites.
We are blessed.
Yeah, we really, we have so many amazing people helping us with this. Insane.
And this is a mini-series right now, yes?
Yeah, it's a 5-issue mini-series. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention Jen Vaughn did the charity cover for number 1 for the series as well, which is con exclusive, can only be gotten at conventions that I attend, and all of the proceeds go towards Puerto Rico aid. But anyway, yes, 5 issues
Nice.
For now. And hopefully, if it does well, if it continues to do well, we might be able to convince Black Mask to let us do more. I would love to, and when Emily isn't busy because she's about to blow up, I would love to do more.
Well, Emily, what is it that you have coming that's going to blow up and eat up all your life from now on? Do tell.
I don't know if
man.
she can talk about it. Can you talk about it?
I can say who I'm working with. I'm working with a super awesome guy, Pat Shand. We're going to do a book together after the Wilds. And then I'm working on a couple different pitches with people, and, you know, hopefully we can come back and do some more Wild stuff. So, I mean, yeah, if the book sells well, you can keep us busy for a while, so that's always good.
Because, yeah, you guys are really starting something in a world where you could expand, you know, to different parts of the compound if you need to, or, you know, tell the perspectives from people at the medical center instead, or there's, you know, it's a whole world you've invented. I mean, how much plotting and planning of world building do you guys have that you know, that you couldn't even put within the confines of a 5-issue series, but that you needed to establish in order to be able to write this?
I have a full notebook of stuff. And Emily and I have been passing notes back and forth about just other stories. So the current storyline will be wrapped up in the 5th issue. I hope to get more, but I never want to leave on a cliffhanger. I want to do complete stories. But there is so much more to the world. And I can give you a little hint of, like, some of the other stuff, but we see incoming issues, some of what other people are doing and how they survive out there, which is really interesting to me. There's all kinds of other things out there besides what we see just in this series. In fact, the narration on the first page, each issue will have that first page kind of intro of, like, this is a piece of what happened. And that narration is a specific character, which I won't spoil who, but I
didn't even know that. That's cool.
Oh yeah, I didn't send you that email. I have it all. I handwrite notes like a crazy person. My notebooks are just full of nonsense, and so I have to transcribe everything as I go. So sometimes I forget to, like, send stuff.
That's cool. I didn't even. Yeah, there's a bunch of other cool, like I mean, you have the compound, but there's, like, a bunch of different cool stuff, like the Riverbend settlement that Daisy visits in the first issue, and then like Heather used to be part of. Can I say, is that a spoiler or?
Yeah. I mean, no, that's fine.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, Heather used to be part of a group called the Nomads, and so they would kind of live in the wilds. So yeah, there's a bunch of different stuff to explore in the world, just in, like, the area where Daisy's from alone. So it's really cool.
That's exciting. Yeah, I think, like, it's hard for, you know, creators, that you have so many ideas, but you also want to be able to have a real resolution and a complete piece to, like, make those decisions about what gets included and what is remaining in that notebook, so to speak.
I could do this for 60 issues, so if they gave me 60 issues, I could do it. But if I only get 5, then it has been an honor and a pleasure, you know. And I want people to be satisfied with whatever it is we're able to give them.
Well, I definitely think that we'll do that. You know, Black Mask has a good reputation as a publisher, actually, of knowing how to do these short season of comics, right, where you know how many there'll be, how many to expect. If it's a huge hit, then they'll bring it back for another season. And right. I think that that's sort of been a policy, really, of the publisher to sort of do its comic series that way. Right? Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry. Right. Yeah. No problem. Well, I want to thank you guys again for joining us, and make sure that folks have a chance to plug any other upcoming things you have coming out with our listeners. Vita, you're writing all of the comics right now. What else should our What else should our listeners be looking out to see from you?
So I've been teasing a project the last few days that I'm working on with Lisa Sterl and Stella Dia and a couple of other people. I'm not supposed to say what, but I make all my announcements on Twitter for sure, and I have been kind of teasing it. So yeah, I guess stay tuned. It will also be brown and queer and lady.
Interesting. Well, I support things that are more brown, more queer, more ladies. So you can count me in for excitement. Definitely appreciated having the brown queer ladies up in the front for the Wilds. So
yeah, I one of the things that I wanted to do was to make sure that everyone knew what they were getting right up front. So the first issue, I think, is a really good indicator of what is to come with the rest.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think I have to say sorry, too, because a lot of people have tweeted at me, actually, about the sex scene, being like, I didn't see that coming. So, sorry, guys.
Yeah. I had to warn my friends and family before they watched. Like, this scene, there's a scene in the first issue that you should probably keep your eye out for.
Well, I should have asked about that particularly. I mean, there's so few scenes where you know that there are two women and that those two women are having sex, and it's not explicit in a way that it's not.
No.
It's not rated X. You know what I mean? This is rated R, right? No. And it's definitely it's a rated R comic, not a rated X comic. But people are so censorious of female bodies having sex with other female bodies when it's not specifically designed to titillate men, right? And you guys are having women having sex with women for their own sakes and not for the sake of the male gaze. But it's definitely sexy and sensual and emotional and all those other things. I mean, did you guys have to sort of how has the conversation been with the public around that? I guess I forgot to delve into that particular moment, which, sad to say, is necessary.
For me, I've not had anyone upset. I've just had people go, I was reading this in public and boobs, just titties, and I was like, oh, yep. But it's funny because no one has mentioned the violence.
Right.
Yeah.
In that way. They've just been and nipples. And it's but we blow someone's head off on page 5.
Yeah, that was the few pages.
Cool with that. It was a tasteful scene. Tastefully drawn sex scene, I think. I gave Emily a lot of you don't have to show anything. We can go art house about this and a navel and an arm and whatever. And Emily did the happy medium, and that is perfect. It is 6 panels long. It's not too much, I don't think. I think that it's a good indicator that these two women care about each other and are physically intimate, and will take their moment whenever they can get it because it's the end of the world. But it was unrealistic to not have lovers having sex upon their very dramatic emotional reunion. Yeah, and Daisy's late, right? So if you're late getting back, they assume that you're dead. You have a certain amount of time before they just write you off as dead, and she hadn't quite reached that, but she was definitely late, and so that was an emotionally charged moment. But Emily, have you gotten any shit for that? I don't.
No, I've had people actually message me saying that they were happy about it. It's okay, that's cool. Yeah, I don't know. It was fun to draw. If I'm being honest, it's just I don't know. It was just a nice moment, and I think it can get.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, what?
I was going to say, you said to me there were 2 things that you really like to draw, and it was I don't remember what the other one is, but one of them was cute girls, and I was yeah, okay.
We support that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, like, I don't know. It's just really like, I feel like at this point people are kind of like past like, oh my God, they're gay. Like, you know, it's fine. There's gay people in the world. They have sex with each other. It's okay. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I hope so.
But do you feel like sometimes people are more like, or do you feel like people are more scandalized or less scandalized, like when it's women? Because I think of it like there's so much sex between women presented as being titillation for men, and women's bodies are like, we're much more comfortable seeing nude women in like public situations, that it's like, well, that's just part of art, you know, like women's bodies are just part of art. But like male nudity, they're going to be like, oh. I mean, I just recently found out that there was a single for one of David Bowie's albums in the 80s that had nude statues of Greek men on the cover, and that cover of that single was censored for Grecian sculptures of nude men. Like, there's not even a real dude, you know. They were just like, people might see a penis and then the world would end. Whereas, you know, like nude images of women in art are like considered completely just our bodies are for consumption, so it's like totally fine. So I don't know.
That's hard right now. I think there's a shift right now in terms of like people like just seeing, you know, two women together as titillation. I think, like Emily said, I think that's not. I think we're moving away from that. I think that they were just more surprised that we showed like the anatomy, and it wasn't like it just. That just seems to be the feeling that I've gotten from people. When I read it and I put it in there and then saw what Emily and Marissa did with it, I was like, wow, this is really, it's impactful and very, like you said, it's like intimate. It's a very intimate moment. And I think people kind of are responding to that as opposed to like being.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm definitely excited and like glad to have like, you know, more art of like legit like women, you know, in love with women having sex in comics. So please continue to make that a reality. It is important and matters. So thank you, guys.
Oh, thank you.
So we're closing on the hour. Do you want to let our listeners know where they can find each of you guys on the internet?
I'm at definitely Vita on everything, Twitter and Instagram. That's who I am.
VITA.
Yep, yes. Definitely Vita.
Yeah, I'm at Emishly Art, EMISHLY, and on Twitter and Instagram, so you can find me there.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining me, and I'm sure you'll both be on the show again sometime soon because I'm really excited about the work you have coming up. So have a great week. And now for our listeners who are wondering what comes next with Graphic Policy Radio, we're going to be back next week with something we haven't done for a long time. We're going to have a comics conversation roundtable to discuss the Mr. Miracle series, the new one that's just coming out from DC Comics, from Mitch Gerard and Tom King. Going to be geeking out about that with an exciting roundtable of comics critics guests really digging into the series at depth. It's going to be on issue 7 by the time we're talking about it. So, you know, get your reading caught up on, put on your literary criticism and art analysis hat, and join us next Monday to dig deep into some comics that we think are worthy of close analysis and consideration. And looking forward to having folks join us for that. And if you came to this episode late, you can still listen to the whole darn thing on iTunes, YouTube. I'm sorry, actually, yeah, it'll be on YouTube later. SoundCloud and Stitcher, all at Graphic Policy Radio. We keep it nice and consistent. This episode will be up on our website in a couple hours. If you'll be able to download it then and get it on iTunes. Please share. Please help us spread the show out and around. And you can listen to it on Blog Talk Radio as well as on your favorite podcast platforms. I'm Ilana Levin, a.k.a. Ilana Brooklyn, and I am on Twitter at ELANA_Brooklyn. All the goddamn time. I was just actually a guest on a wonderful movie podcast this past week. You can check out my episode on The Wrong Reel. talking about The Wicker Man, one of the best cult films, bringing my 1973 knowledge into play. So I love for folks to check out that episode of their podcast and check out the Wrong Rail podcast in general. It's a really good movie podcast for folks who are into cinema of the past and present as well. I look forward to seeing you guys next week. And as we always say, keep it geeky.
Hey, thanks for watching the previous video from Graphic Policy Television. Just by watching, you help support our site. Thank you so much. Now, if you're watching these videos, you probably care about geeky things like movies, television, comic books, toys, games, video games, you name it. You can go and subscribe right now to our YouTube channel to stay in touch and catch all the new videos, or check out our website at graphicpolicy.com. There's a nice link on this end of the video. But as always, thank you for watching. Keep on rocking and keep it geeky.